The acoustics in this room is something else, isn't it? I can hear myself bouncing from each side of the room and even towards the back. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Terrence Moore with the Office of the City Manager, and welcome to our Town Hall engagement. The principal focus, of course, amendments to the Noise Ordinance, Chapter 99, Noise Control. We emphasize Chapter 99, Noise Control, because unbeknownst to a number of residents and stakeholders, the City of Delray Beach has had some level of noise control governance in our community for quite some time. And over the past nearly 4 years now, the City of Delray Beach has been undertaking a review of said regulations so that we can get to the absolute best place possible in terms of striking a balance between resident and business interests as it pertains to noise issues and challenges that may be experienced in any given area of the community. Our interest this evening is to reiterate a presentation that was offered to the City Commission via its Tuesday, November 18, 2025 workshop meeting. We assigned a specific amount of time for this particular topic to give City Commission an opportunity to offer its guidance and feedback with respect to a path forward moving along. During the January 20, 2026 City Commission meeting, literally 2 weeks, 2 days ago, it was actually Commissioner Tom Markert who championed the cause and idea of a town hall engagement to spend a little bit of time to discuss why we are where we are, in addition to any ancillary feedback that may be appropriate as we prepare for A, enforcement, and B, final adoption by the City Commission. Before I get into the formalities in that regard, I'd like to make a few introductions. Speaking of Tom Markert, Commissioner Tom Markert is here, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Markert is here. Many of you all had a chance to say hello to him. And he's accompanied by his lovely better halves. Miss Sarah Markert is here as well. So it goes hand in hand, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you all both for being here. And as part of today's or this evening's engagement, I've asked leadership from both the Delray Beach Police Department as well as the Delray Beach Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, specifically the Code Enforcement Division, to please be here because both departments will be involved in respective enforcement activities of which they'll be in position to, A, take under consideration any feedback and thoughts that may be offered in this regard, as well as to prepare for orientation purposes based on what's being outlined and summarized. So what I would like to do before we proceed with the formal slide presentation based on November 18, 2025, I would like to ask Chief of Police Daryl Hunter to come forward because I would like for him to briefly acknowledge members of his command staff and team members who will be involved in this cause. So, Chief of Police Daryl Hunter, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Again, I want to thank you all for giving us an opportunity to come out and engage with you regarding this topic about the Noise Ordinance here in the city of Delray Beach. I do have some members of our command staff that's with us. To my right is Deputy Chief Rodney Stevenson. In the middle, we have Sergeant Matt Saracini. And on the far right, we have Lieutenant Hannes Schofeli. So these gentlemen will actually help us here to engage you guys with some of the concerns that's been brought up through the city with regards to noise. And these will be the gentlemen that will be doing a lot of the enforcement and a lot of the education components to this. So we'll have them here for any questions that may be asked of you all that you have.
Thank you, Chief Hunter and gentlemen. At this time, I'd like to offer the same opportunity for Director of Neighborhood and Community Services, Jerry Pryor, on the code enforcement side, if you will.
Thank you. Oh, please save that for later, because I don't know if I'll get the same applause after this. I'm Jerry Pryor. I'm the Director of Neighborhood and Community Services. And again, I want to echo what Chief Hunter is saying. We really appreciate you all coming out and being involved in this process, because we can't do better if you don't tell us what your concerns are. So I want to thank you and giving us your time. Time you'll never get back, by the way, so we're going to try and make it the best we can. I want to introduce to you the code enforcement key players for this project. First off is Henry Thompson. Henry Thompson, he's been here 100 years, so you probably already know him. But he is the administrator for the Clean and Safe Division. The Clean and Safe Division manages all the code enforcement and maintenance activities on Atlantic Avenue. And so Henry, key player with the noise ordinance, right? I want to introduce, Phil Cartwright. Phil Cartwright is a code enforcement supervisor. So he works hand in hand with Henry on the code enforcement issues at a city level, in addition to the clean and safe area. So Phil has a lot on his plate. And I want to introduce you Joe Oliva. Joe Oliva just came to us. We kind of took him away from West Palm Beach, and his background is code enforcement as well as a former sheriff deputy. So his experience with noise enforcement, expert in noise in West Palm as well. So we picked these team players to help with us and get through this process, answer as many questions as we possibly can. And then, again, I'm Jerry Pryor. I have my card, so if you guys need, I'm happy to share that information with you. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Parker and gentlemen. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll proceed with the slide presentation. So we have screens on both sides of the room. However, before I do, I'd like to offer a recognition to Chief Technology Officer Jay Stacy, who's with us this evening, for assisting us in town hall engagements, working with our service provider externally. So thank you very much for the work. I would also like to offer recognition to leadership of the Downtown Development Authority. Ms. Laura Simon, the Executive Director, is here. Our remaining active member, previous board member, is Mavis Benson. She's with us this evening as well. And current board member, Brian Rosen, is with us. Brian Rosen. So thank you all very much for being here. And again, thank each of you all for joining us for a little while this evening as we get ourselves prepared and squared away. So again, amendments to the noise ordinance as discussed during the November 18, 2025 City Commission workshop meeting, devoted specifically in this regard. The purpose of this part of the presentation is to provide a little bit of context and history. So back in 2022, as I mentioned nearly 4 years ago now, City Commission approved the hiring of a consultant to conduct a study. So technical consulting services externally, working collaboratively with the Office of the City Attorney, were assembled to begin the trajectory for which we are currently involved. Soundwalk conducted throughout the entertainment district. We all are familiar with that area, the downtown vicinity and other adjoining areas. Finally, by 2025, last year, a draft noise ordinance was presented to the City Commission. We are likewise in early 2026 in the process of achieving an adoption. Again, because of the foresight and vision of Commissioner Tom Marker to consider a town hall engagement, he's become a bit of a fan of this practice, ladies and gentlemen, so I appreciate that as well. We are here today, so thank you again, sir, for the recommendation. The objectives of the amendments: create certainty, find a balance between residents and businesses, which is a point I've raised via my introductory comments, manage expectations, ensure fairness and consistency. What stayed the same in this regard? Of course, boundaries of the entertainment district have not changed, and I think we can easily attest to that. Hours of permissible noise, we have dynamics in place. Given the presence of the entertainment district, activity can be allowed until late hours, of course, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning in some cases. Therefore, no changes in that regard. The existing penalties have not changed as well, so there are some mechanisms in which we can enforce penalty outcomes in the event that egregious experiences are the case. Proposed changes included new definitions related to decibels and sound levels, creating a new map of the entertainment district to be considered. Update old definitions is the process for which we are currently engaged. Proposed changes defines activities that are not subject to enforcement. Specifically includes motor vehicles, vessels upon any waterway, landscape maintenance equipment, and air conditioning equipment subject to qualifications. Clarifies permissible construction activity. So that's as part of the process in which we wish to achieve. Updated list of unlawful activities: peddling, hawking, vending, or barking by shouting or raising voice. Clarifies prohibition on noise made by animals. So there's a component to that effect as well. In terms of proposed changes and, frankly, prohibited activities would be contemplated. Proposed changes, Section 99.05, maximum permissible use. Noise level established, noise violation obtained by sound level meters, and we'll talk about that in a little while. This is an entirely new section to establish maximum noise levels. Establishes decibel limits in residential and commercial uses in the entertainment district and in community facilities. Differentiates between active hours and quiet hours, looking to incorporate a specific distinction in that regard. Talk about enforcement. The application of technology to help us get to the best place possible and to be as effective as we can be. The application and use of sound level meters. Sound level meter, an instrument comprising a microphone, amplifier, frequency weighing networks, logging and averaging circuitry, a display screen, and digital output capability that is used for the measurement of sound levels in a specific manner. Sound level meters shall meet or exceed the requirements for Type 2 sound level meters described in ANSA standard or the latest approved revision thereof. And a big reason why I asked leadership from the Delray Beach Police Department and the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services Code Enforcement Division to be here is because both departments will assign technological capabilities to appointed staff members to help us get to the best place possible in terms of enforcement and effectiveness to do as much as we possibly can to strike the balance we talked about earlier. Additional proposed changes. Section 99.06, noise disturbance prohibited. Noise violation based on plainly audible standard. Use of plainly audible standard permissible under limited circumstances. Plainly audible defined as, quote, any sound that is unambiguous, verifiable, and discernible above ambient noise levels by a person using their unaided hearing faculties, or that can be clearly heard by a person using his or her normal hearing faculties at a distance 100 feet or more from the property line or right-of-way line to the source of the noise. The penalty to this effect will likewise result in a warning. Proposed changes, Section 99.08, warnings issued. A first encounter in terms of a violation involves the application or issuance of a warning. Failure to comply results in penalties listed in Chapter 37 and Florida Statute 162, which enables municipalities to engage in the issuance of civil citations, notice of violations, initiation of code enforcement proceedings. Each violation, a separate fine. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, a specific fine for each specific violation. So some clarification to that effect, enabling the city of Delray Beach to do as much as we possibly can to make this a serious endeavor. Outstanding questions that came about during the process of cultivating this consideration. Additional considerations for discussion prior to adoption. Prohibited gas power equipment or regulate hours of lawn maintenance equipment use. Expand entertainment district or continue with conditional use process. Purchase of noise meters and training of staff. Again, a core reason as to why police leadership and neighborhood and community services leadership are present to take that into consideration, because once the new ordinance is adopted and updated and adopted, we'll begin with the necessary training programs so that we can be as effective as possible. With that, ladies and gentlemen, much appreciated. That gives an overview in terms of why we are where we are. Again, deliberate engagement with the City Commission to this effect have been offered over the last couple months or so. Again, we are here before you all this evening to take under consideration any specific thoughts, questions, observations any of you all may have. I am likewise being assisted by leadership of Neighborhood and Community Services, along with Chief of Police Darrell Hunter and members of his team who will be involved in this effort, as you heard from him a little while ago. With that, Chief Hunter or Jerry Pryor, I would like to ask either of you all to assign an individual who would be kind enough to take the microphone off the stand, the red microphone there, unmute it, and make it available to any of the residents and stakeholders who are with us this evening so that we can clearly experience and understand any questions or concerns you might have. And by the way, to reiterate, this is being live streamed, so for individuals who are not able to be with us physically this evening, they'll have an opportunity to review the material either from where they currently are, if not later sometime whenever convenient. Any questions or concerns, ladies and gentlemen? Marty Darrell. And if I recognize you all by individual name, I will shout it out.
Thank you for addressing this issue. A question I have is, and I saw one coming here tonight, when these cars hit the gas, how are we going to catch them? How are you going to enforce them? Because there's stationary issues and then there's the mobile issues. And it's going to be very challenging. I was curious to how the sound meter will work on a vehicle.
Can you hear me like this?
Okay. For us, in the motors unit, in the traffic unit, we use Florida state statute. We don't even need a decimal reader. If we can hear music from a car from 25 feet away, we can stop it under statute. 25 feet. Exhaust, same. There's a statute for that as well that we use. There's two different statutes for that, one for modified exhaust, one for loud exhaust.
Have you already been implementing this? Because I'm in town a lot, and the cars just pop off all the time. They take off from right here at Swinton and zoom this way, or if they stop at a light, and it's constant, but I don't ever see anybody stopping them. So I don't know if this is something new that's going to be implemented.
It's not just the traffic unit. 2022 is when since 2022 is when some of these statutes came back in order, like the loud music one and whatnot. But the traffic unit has been doing this type of enforcement the whole way.
But really, okay.
I personally, as the traffic sergeant, have pulled over cars for loud exhaust.
Yeah, because.
So how would you catch that? He's coming with it. It's being televised. Okay, so that's why we're asking.
Hi, I'm Steve Dickstein. The problem with controlling moving vehicle violations is manpower, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the traffic unit is limited on manpower, yes.
Okay. Have you guys looked into any noise control cameras?
I don't know of any technology that does that through camera. I know speed.
There are a number of cities throughout the country that uses noise control cameras. They're very expensive, but they can be leased, and they can also pay for themselves in fines. And it's a very low manpower type of technology that you guys just can't. You're not going to be able to get one car, one block that's blasting out their music or blowing out a muffler. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is what I think exactly what you were saying before. So the enforcement for most of us in the room, or at least for me, has been negligible, and it's really annoying. So I suggest that you guys look into the technology, look into the costs, know that it will pay for itself with fines, and you can lease it, so if you control the problem, you can always release it and get back again. So that's my recommendation. The other question I have from the presentation is about the 100-foot rule for music and in the entertainment district. 100 feet, and I don't know if the standards of, what time, clubs, Johnny Brown's or Tin Roof are allowed to go to, but you're going to hear those things much more than 100 feet. So, in fact, if there's a 100-foot enforcement, it's actually going to change the entire culture of downtown. And I don't know if there's anyone in the room that feels that we should have a new Delray Beach without the vibrancy of the music that comes from our great establishments.
Anybody else?
And following you, sir, it would be the young father over there.
Yeah, we're relatively new to the community. We live adjacent to the drawbridge, kind of kitty corner from Deck 84. It's a wonderful location,
in many respects. But we do have to endure all of these Batman cars coming across the bridge with a tremendous amount of noise, the exhaust, speeding in many instances. I walk regularly up across the restaurants, Luna, A1, cars speeding there with the exhaust. I'm kind of dumbfounded. Again, pardon me, because I'm not speaking to enforcement, and I'm not suggesting that enforcement is easy, but I do see police cars off to the side, the Luna, and watching these guys go by with a tremendous amount of noise and in some cases excessive speed. So I don't have the answers. I'm just offering observations here this evening, and it's very troubling. I just don't see, any of these people being pulled over. I don't know if they can be pulled over. I just don't see it up in the last 4 or 5 months that we've lived here.
I appreciate that, sir. And quite frankly, both you gentlemen, you all offer some thoughts and observations, and that's a hallmark reason for having a town hall engagement, so that we can take those points of view and observations into consideration as we prepare accordingly. So that's valuable feedback and, again, a principal basis for having a town hall engagement in this fashion. So duly noted in both regards. Thank you. Sir.
Hi, my name is Michael Teisch. My wife and I live in Lake Ida. I think we're here on the opposite side of the spectrum. Number one is, I think there's a lot of people, whether it's in Lake Ida or live east by the beach, that paid a premium to not be in an HOA and not have regulation of what we're doing. And we've only been there a little over a year, and there's multiple neighbors that do different parties throughout the year that create the fabric of the neighborhood, whether it's a Valentine's Day party, a Kentucky Derby party, a cul-de-sac get-together. And I've heard and seen that the police will come by earlier on and are very nice and cordial, say the music's great, the party's great, but we're going to be back here at 11 o'clock and tell you to shut it down. And now you're going to be able to have neighborhood complaints and have potentially, my understanding is, hands tied of coming around and being able to tell people to shut it down at 10 o'clock, which is going to change the fabric of the community. And there seems to be no difference between a Tuesday night and a Friday and Saturday night in this noise ordinance. And it seems like it's going to give, it reminds me of when we were living up north during COVID. When you give people the opportunity to have rules they can enforce, there's certain people that want to enforce rules no matter what the rules are. So now you're going to have the ability for people to call in and start complaining at 10 o'clock instead of 11 o'clock. And number two is, as far as the car noise goes, it sounds like the rules are already in place to impact cars. And number two is, at the beginning of this presentation, there was something about exceptions to noise, and motor vehicles were listed as an exception. So I don't quite understand. It sounds like motor vehicles are an exception to the rule. And number two is, it sounds like there's laws already in place on the state level to impact this. So I don't quite understand what this changing of this noise ordinance is. And as far as the downtown area goes, people who moved to the downtown area because they wanted the hustle and bustle and the liveliness of downtown, and now you're putting in an onerous impact on business owners and the bars and restaurants down there, and it seems like people are putting extra unnecessary things in place, and it seems like a lot of people I talked to downtown didn't know about this or just finding out about it, and it doesn't seem like it's at least in my age group, it doesn't seem to be well received. So that's it.
Thank you, sir, for your concerns. We truly appreciate you bringing that forward. And what I can tell you as Chief of Police for the Delray Beach Police Department, we are attentive to all of you all's concerns with regards to quality of life. And when we're talking about parties and different entertainment that's taking place, especially as we're talking about Super Bowl that's coming up Sunday. So one thing I can tell you that we do get inundated with a lot of calls that's like that. We do go out to these residents. We have conversations with them, make contact with them. about the volume of the noise of the music and also traffic, some of it that's maybe possibly impeding. Obviously, we need to keep the roadways clear for emergency vehicles. So we do, as your police department, have those conversations with those individuals, some of them whom to be are your neighbors, and some of them may be you all that's sitting here. So we're attentive to that, and we make sure that, we try to do as best we possibly can and come into a compromise with that without disrupting the quality of life for our individuals. But if things get to a point where it escalates, and I hope that it doesn't get to that point where we have to actually just shut down an event, in which we have had to do that in the past. Some of you all don't know some of those places, and you just, you only know what you know in the areas where you live. But we've had to do that on several occasions. But we try not to. We try to, have conversations with the individuals to have them turn it down. We know that as soon as we leave or get around the corner, somebody's turning it back up, and then the call's being made again. So we do that. I know there was some concerns about the bridge. One thing I can tell you, that our motor unit, what we do is on a periodic basis, we run speed and noise controls. Some of these, I know you guys don't see them, and you're speaking about times that you don't see us making stops, but I can rest assure you that we have statistical data to back up some of the complaints and concerns that you all are bringing forward today, where we have conducted enforcement and we have observed and we do have documented information regarding those different incidents. I get it that we're not omnipresent, but rest assured that we are out there and enforcing. Sergeant Saraceni, we had Lieutenant Hannes Schofele, who was in the traffic unit. They do a phenomenal job, and their team of writing citations, as many as we possibly can. We have a lot of dangerous intersections within our city that actually requires our care too. So, we're like all over the city, and enforcing those different things and trying to make sure that we improve safety throughout our whole city. So please, thank you all for your concerns that you have, and we will look into those and some of the suggestions that you guys are making here too, to come to a place that we all can be happy with for the city.
Okay, there are several hands, and what I'd like to do is go in order of which I recognize. So you're next, sir, followed by Brian and Rosen, and then you, ma'am, and then you, ma'am. Okay, well, I'll come back to you as well, Miss Andrea Bruton. Sir.
How do you do? Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Arlen Dominic. I have been a resident of Delray Beach for the last 27 years. I started working in Delray Beach in 1997. I moved here from Winter Park. I live at the Bar Terrace, which is at the northeast intersection of Atlantic Avenue and the Intracoastal. Over the course of the past 10 years, I have complained consistently and constantly about the increased level of noise on Atlantic Avenue that comes from vehicle traffic. This doesn't have to be cars that are speeding. It can be cars that know how to make their engines pop, motorcycles that know how to make their engines pop, golf carts that play with their music blaring as they go up and down the avenue. You can sit at the Colonial restaurant outside and be disturbed by cars, other vehicles that go by. You can see trucks with big mufflers on them that are not standard issue. And as you have pointed out, yes, indeed, the state has had regulations regarding improper modifications of vehicles, and yet this does not seem to be consistently or adequately enforced. Moreover, I've been told that your officers, Chief Hunter, maintain that the noise levels are consistent with a vibrant downtown area like Delray Beach. I disagree. I have lived in this city now for 27 years. That noise has increased. I used to live in Palm Beach before I moved to Delray Beach. I would leave 32 East at night, and the motorcycles would be noisy all the way down Atlantic Avenue, and they would be noisy on Ocean until I hit Gulfstream, and they purred along the way. If Palm Beach doesn't have to have noise, if Ocean Ridge doesn't have to have noise, if Manalapan doesn't have to noise in Gulfstream, we shouldn't have to have noise either. And I know that I've seen your patrolmen out there policing the roads. I know that they're there, but they're not there when that motorcycle or whatever vehicle pops its engine at 1:30 in the morning or at 12:45 or at 6 o'clock like it did this morning. We need to do something better and more effective. My neighbors have all complained about it. We actually have to stop our conversations on our pool deck because of some of the noise. When the bridge goes up and it's nice weather, hey, you can listen to someone entertain us with their moving motorcycle or whatever it is, boombox. It's just not right. We give a considerable amount of tax revenue to the city. I think that we deserve better, and I would appreciate your continued efforts in trying to mitigate this. But it is a problem, and you can tell that from many people here. I also have the opportunity to listen to Deck 84 just like this gentleman. I live roughly 600 feet away from Deck 84. Their live bands start playing on Friday or Saturday afternoons. One of my neighbors thinks it's just so cool. Look, you get to come down here and enjoy that noise. I sit at my desk and I just feel the throb of boom, boom, boom coming through my windows while I'm trying to work. There needs to be adequate enforcement. I don't think you have to get rid of bands. I've gone nightclubbing a lot in my youth. In Chicago, in New York City, I didn't hear the nightclubs when I walked down the street. I only heard them once I was in the club. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So actually, Andrea Bruton will be next, followed by you, ma'am. Mr. Rosen, you yielded your seat, your time to Ms. Bruton. So with that, we'll continue the order outlined earlier. Ms. Bruton.
Thank you. My sentiment is a little bit different from you all, east of Swinton. My name is Andrea Bruton, and I'm a lifelong resident here in Delray Beach. And I remember growing up from I-95 all the way to basically to the bridge. It was the entertainment district. There were clubs, there were restaurants, the music was blaring. There were people walking up and down the sidewalks up at least until 2 o'clock in the morning. So I say the same ordinance we have east of Swinton, I'm asking that you bring it west of Swinton so that we can have times or good times west of Swinton as well. So with that being said, I understand you all moving here, but you had to know when you moved here that there was already a history of entertainment in both areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bruton. Chief Stevenson, actually the lady who I acknowledged earlier, if we can get the mic over. Here, I'll take it.
Hello. My name is Eva Astramovich. I just moved only 2 months ago to Delray, hoping for quiet, and I have to admit that I'm very disappointed, mostly because of gasoline leaf blowers. That's my biggest trouble, because I wasn't careful enough, and I've read that in Palm Beach they are banned. Same in Highland, and even in Palm Beach, where I lived. But because of the traffic and noise, I decided to move over here. And I was hoping that such an relic, such an Asian tool, doesn't exist in here, in that sweet little town. So if someone could explain me why we are still using those gasoline leaf blowers, would be great.
Thank you. I'll take that one briefly because that was a brief topic of discussion as it relates to the noise ordinance. Not so much the availability and use in that regard in the marketplace, but any adjustments that we can take under consideration regarding times of operation so as to potentially not disrupt individual quality of life. So there's... Yes, ma'am. So a couple municipalities we are reviewing and benchmarking to ascertain what potential best practices there might be. The application of electric blowers, for example, versus gas-powered motors. And so a longer-term separate consideration above and beyond in that regard. But as it relates to the noise ordinance piece, some considerations are being observed. So more to come as time progresses. But it does exist by most municipalities and other private lawn care companies, etc. There's a prevailing thought as to not disrupt their business capabilities in that regard. So that may necessitate a higher level of involvement above and beyond the city of Delray Beach to consider the environmental aspects, applicable regulations in that regard. So something for us to keep an eye on as it relates to environmental concerns, and rightfully so. So with that, much ways to go to get to that place. However, as it relates to the noise ordinance component, our interest is to do what we can to mitigate disruption to quality of life to the extent that we can. So that's part of our evaluation, the city's evaluation. Yes, ma'am, the lady in the pink, and then here, then back here.
Right here, ma'am.
And thank you.
Thank you. My name is Philomena. My husband's name is John. I appreciate everything all of you do. Enforcement is not an easy task. We're new to the city, almost a year and a half. We chose to live downtown because I'm wobbly neurologically and I don't drive, and I want to be able to walk around. I appreciate that this is a vibrant city, but we also thought that where we live, we would have some quiet at nighttime when we're sleeping. So after 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't think it's unfair to expect the noise level to go down. Also, in the streets, walking up and down, as far from my home to church, to shopping, Publix, everywhere I walk. And the cars that are, I don't know what the term is, souped up and their engines rev, a couple of times, well, more than a couple, it's made me jump out of my skin and trip because I'm so startled. I don't see, like I've seen in other states, signs up that say, like, no honking. Could we not have signs up about some kind of noise ordinance? And I have often been standing at a traffic light to cross the street or walking where it's mostly the young ones I see, but the cars are just being revved up to get attention and not doing anything. So my question is, if I take a photograph of the license plate whilst I'm standing waiting and they're doing that, can I pass it on to somebody? And because if people get warnings, the more warnings they get, perhaps the lesser the sound will be, as you cannot be patrolling up and down and running after every car that goes past. I'd like to know from y'all, what can we as residents do to help you be effective in reducing the noise? Because I do want a vibrant city. I want the young and the old to be able to live here. I do like music. I do like going out to restaurants. My husband's a late night person. But the extraordinary noise is intolerable, and it happens every day. I walk around every day. I walk around everywhere. In the quiet streets, it happens also when suddenly somebody on an electric bike with a souped-up engine suddenly zipped past me, and I jumped out of my skin. It happens on the quiet streets and the main streets. And what can we do as residents to help you reduce this? Thank you.
Well, just to answer the question about taking a picture, if you took a picture of a vehicle doing a violation, we can't cite based upon that. But what you can do is if you're seeing that same car over and over again at a specific time, then you can report it. And if you do that, then I would know to go check that area at that time to see if that car is over there doing that particular action.
A picture, a photograph, as opposed to a video? Would you take a video to show?
Well, the key to any car is to get a picture of the license plate so that we can run the license plate and see who the car comes back to. Like I said before, a video of the action, a loud engine, I can't cite based upon your video, no.
There are a couple of individuals over on this side. I just wish to make sure I caught anyone else who has not yet spoken. Sir, did you have a question? And then we'll be back to you two. You would be next, ma'am, followed by you.
Yes, we moved here 6 years ago, chose downtown because of its vibrance. Of course, we looked at our place during the daytime. We only live about 250 feet off of Atlantic Avenue, behind the Tin Roof and Honey's. We quickly realized after we moved in to spend $30,000 on all new windows and doors, and that helped. It doesn't help at 2 in the morning when the loud cars leave the garage down the street, but it's helped. I also walked with the walking groups with the noise consultant. We went on a Wednesday night about 9:30 in the evening, and it was very quiet. I'm not sure he learned a whole lot from that particular walk. I am curious if any of the staff, either police or code enforcement, has had any recent experience, now that we know the decibel levels that are being proposed, if they've actually gone out and seen if that's realistic. I question if it is, and I know the numbers came from some time ago, but I'm wondering if we've actually, our own people have seen it and not just relied on the consultant.
As far as staff in both code enforcement and the police department, there hasn't been a very specific training in that regard. However, given the feedback being offered, as well as the fact that we are on the way for training police to be assigned for this purpose, code enforcement teams to be assigned for this purpose, that will be part of the process. So to intimately get familiar with some of the issues and challenges that might exist, that do exist, I should say, so that we can strike a balance with respect to the observations you've just shared. So that will be a minute. So, ladies had your hands up first. So, ma'am, with the glasses, you would be next, followed by you, and then we'll come back over to you, sir.
Hi there. I thought for a long time it would be nice if Boca and Delray partnered when it came to these lawn services. And if you had, say, a 4-day week in Boca and a 4-day week in Delray, and nobody worked on a Saturday or a Sunday or one of those days you had off in one town or the other. In addition to that, what about a 9:30 to 4:30? I have a next-door neighbor that constantly has their lawn service at 5 o'clock on a Friday, and others that have it at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings. So if there was a partnership between those two towns and there was a couple of days a week that we could have noise where there was nothing, it would also benefit these people who work in these lawn services. They could concentrate their work in one area and then concentrate it in another area. In regards to noise violation, I just want to quickly say this 100 feet, many of the homes in the city of Delray are closer than that. You can hear this noise. It goes on for hours upon hours upon hours. We've called the police repeatedly on one individual. They have been out there multiple times. I feel badly that we're using our police that way. What I wish the police had said at one point is, we have a noise ordinance division. They can work with you and have a referral system. We never knew that. We were just calling the police over and over and over again. Neighbors calling the police over and over and over again for years. I wish my problem was a car that occasionally went by instead of hours on end on a nightly basis with this guy. So I think that the police and noise ordinance should partner up to say something can be done. Our job is to ask people to quiet down. You have a next step that you can do, and we'll put you in touch, or we can give you a name and number for a noise ordinance that they can come out and monitor this. And they finally did, and something happened.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And it goes hand in hand also with the fact that above and beyond the Delray Beach Police Department, the Code Enforcement Division of the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, so joint departments collaborating to get to the best place possible in this and all other regards, quite frankly. A couple of you all, including you, ma'am, mentioned the piece regarding lawn care services and the noise that come with that. And getting back to a previous conversation we had in that regard, not just Delray Beach, but virtually all municipalities, we have to be rather careful to not create regulations or too many regulations that may potentially disrupt private commerce, private businesses, livelihood, etc. So again, the city of Delray Beach will likely have to take under consideration any benchmark opportunities that might be available to ascertain how something like that might work without compromising the piece with respect to business and commerce, i.e. lawn care businesses and companies who are using those opportunities to achieve a livelihood. So, point well taken. Nevertheless, we have a number of balances in which we strike. So thank you. So, Chief.
This is about the noise ordinance of vehicles, not
Ma'am.
music.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the fine or the penalty for those who are stopped? Because that's one deterrent if it's strong enough, because it seems buddy after buddy after buddy, sometimes there's 3 and 4 cars all together doing it, and a lot of them come the same time, the same route, as you know. So what is the deterrent so that the message gets spread? Don't rev your engine and blow it up in Delray Beach.
Well, I can't speak to what the fine will be for the ordinance. For the state statute, it was $116 and a non-moving violation. So it wasn't a great deterrent because someone who's driving a McLaren can afford the $116 ticket, and he'll gladly pay it if he's getting caught once a year doing it. But now they have raised it since 2024. They raised it to $313, and a secondary offense is $633, I believe. So it's a little stiffer. So hopefully with those stiffer penalties, it's a little more expensive, especially if it's a secondary offense, and it could. Well, we got to witness them. So, we know where they're doing it. There's a tremendous amount of volume downtown. We know it, and yes, we're not always behind the vehicle. We could be 10 vehicles back and hear an engine revving. And remember, when you're in a car, you don't always know what car it's coming from, especially when you have 4 supercars in a row. So you have to be able to get to them. Most of the cars we stop are going to be along the Federal Highway corridor or in the beach area when they're going into the bridge, because that's where it opens up the avenue where you can catch up to a car. So that's where we spend a lot of our time enforcing. The bridge number 1 at Bar Terrace, we spent months and months over there doing traffic enforcement. And speed, from the studies, you're not in the 15th percentile for speed, but we still do the speed enforcement. And when we're down there, that's when we notice not only the cars, but 1 out of every 10 vehicles that come over that bridge is a golf cart, and they're blasting music. A lot of our stops for music were off of golf carts. So,
Thank you. So I'll be with you, sir. I'd like to give others the opportunity who have not yet spoken the ability to do so, and then I'll circle back to any follow-up observations or questions there might be. So with that, Chief Stevenson, the gentleman, the husband, who likes to stay up late at night, as I understand, yes? And then after that, Brian Rosen will go ahead and take you. We'll come back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up to what Philbin had said. So is there a plan to advertise this, especially from vehicular traffic coming from out of town, because are there going to be signs posted somewhere so that people are aware of the new ordinance?
Yes, we will have an educational component. Before we do any enforcement in the city of Delray Beach, there's always an educational component of that first to educate the residents and also some of the visitors that may be watching on television. But we always have an educational component first with everything that we do for enforcement before we actually start enforcing it.
Okay, thank you.
Very well, Chief, and thank you. Brian Rosen, we'll take you next. Yeah, yes. Good for him.
Great, Brian Rosen. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, city manager, for putting this together. We've been following these noise ordinance for a number of years. I did the sound walks. I try to be very involved. We always hear a lot of the same thing, and I just want to reiterate it. It's a lot of the vehicles that seem to be the major issue with a number of folks. There is some surrounding some of the businesses. The one thing I did want to clarify is that the 100 feet is if they don't have the equipment. But if they do have the equipment, they do it from the property line. So understand
that's correct.
That's how the ordinance now reads. So, one of my concerns was with being vice chair of the DDA and working with a number of our businesses and even, the neighbors that want to see some of the entertainment district move to their area, west of Atlantic. Some of the venues are outdoor venues. So there was some concern, generally, where if you're right outdoors, even if there's music, you could cut off the music. And if there's 100 people or 70 people at that venue, and if you're using 85 decibels as the one that was set, I'd mentioned it before, there's just some concern that might be a little light. Because even without the music, if you put that many people together, the decibel level will be 85 or more possibly. So, just make sure we test it out before we implement it a little bit. I know that even on the sound walk on a Wednesday, Johnny Brown's was hitting 85. So that would be in violation or right on the edge. And I'll tell you that when we measured Johnny Brown's, we were across the street. We weren't standing at their front door when we did that measurement. So just, I was saying move it to 90 possibly. I'm okay with it. I know there's a number of ways that these businesses can set their equipment so that it doesn't go over a certain decibel even if they turn it full volume. There's ways and technology to limit this, which I think is also an important thing that we may want to look at as a city to ensure that it'll make the enforcement better if you stop them from having the ability. What happens is folks may bring in other speakers and stuff like that, and that's when it really goes up. And you got to look for that if they have DJs or bands come in. But basically, generally it's a lot about the traffic. I know this is also focused on a number of the businesses. And I just say, businesses are tough these days. We want a vibrant downtown. The entertainment district alone is basically, from Swinton to Federal, and it only goes 2 or 3 blocks. It's not a very big area. And again, just be sensitive to that action and that you want that entertainment. It's an entertainment district for a reason. And I know a number of businesses are very nervous and just, want to work with the city, want to be good stewards. And those are my thoughts. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen.
And then I guess my other question was, what is the situation with a certain venue if they do say turn off all the music and it's because of the people that they're still over 85? Is that a situation where they have to tell people to leave the venue? I didn't know if there was a way to handle that type of situation if it's not necessarily coming from the music.
Finally, code enforcement question. Thank you, Chief Hunter, for fielding everything. I appreciate you. So the process is, and under code enforcement always, is we try to get that voluntary compliance. That's our first and foremost goal. So if we have a situation where there's noise, we ask folks to, work with us, turn it down, and we give you reasonable time to turn it down. If it means you got to clear it out, you got to turn off it's a switch where you got to turn off the music, you got to shut the band down. Whatever that is, we work with the proprietor or the business owner and say, what's reasonable for you to turn this down? Because we're here and we're giving you time. This is a warning. We're going to work with you. Now, where it becomes sticky is you give them an hour to turn everything down, and then we come back and they're still going. Well, then that's another reason why we're here, right? We didn't achieve that voluntary compliance. And so it could escalate to where you get a notice of violation to appear into a special magistrate hearing or a civil citation. It just depends on the circumstance. So there are mechanisms to try to get that voluntary compliance, and we're going to work with the businesses. We're not there to shut them down. We're not there to close a party. And if the noise from the crowd is too much, then we might be calling his team to help us clear it out, because code enforcement isn't going to go in and clear it out, not without police involvement, because it's just not good. It's not safe, and it's a coordinated effort to try to mitigate that problem. But in the business, in the entertainment district, and Henry's team, they're very, very good with working with the businesses. But I will tell you, it could escalate to where it's a notice of violation for that property owner, and then they end up in the special magistrate process. So.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen, and thank you, Ms. Pryor. Appreciate the clarity, and I like to think that's helpful. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I'd like to make an additional acknowledgement. In addition to Commissioner Thomas Markert, we also have Deputy Vice Mayor Angela Burns, who since joined us after beginning the meeting. Deputy Vice Mayor Angela Burns, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. So any others who have not yet given the opportunity to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you. We've been here 12 years, and what attracted us to Delray was the pedestrian quality of downtown. We wanted to be able to walk, and it is a wonderful pedestrian town. It's what attracts. We have this sort of cafe sidewalk society that exists here. It has not always been this loud. That we know for sure. It has gotten louder and louder and louder. And I'm referring to the vehicles on the streets, the trucks, the motorcycles, the cars with mufflers, and all that sort of thing. There's kind of two things going on. There's noise that you sort of expect when you walk downtown. You expect to hear music coming from Johnny Brown's. You expect to hear noise or music coming from the Tin Roof. We can make an argument, and we can debate all day whether it's too loud or not. It's the unexpected noise, I think, that really, really rocks a lot of people. Again, the trucks, the motorcycles, the mufflers that are designed to shoot flames out. At least it sounds that way. 7 o'clock in the evening, one evening, I was walking in front of Tremonte's, and there was a wonderful family sitting out there. It was a lady who's probably in her mid-80s, and this truck went by and just gunned the engine, and this poor woman literally just jumped out of her seat. She was frightened, and I think that's all that happens. It's just this frightening sound. The fact that we're here, the fact that the city committed a noise consultant, we all know that there's a problem. It's not a function of trucks and motorcycles. It's a function of how much noise they make. In Newport, Rhode Island, they have a wonderful motorcycle community there. If you go down to the harbor, you'll see about 200 motorcycles all parked in an area, and you never hear a sound. They have a noise ordinance. It's $250, and if you gun the engine, you get a fine. And then the word spreads through, in this case, the motorcycle community, and the word gets out, and things quiet down. I think, Chief, you were talking about the education component. There needs to be a way we can get the word out that Atlantic Avenue is just not going to be roughhoused with that kind of noise. I'm talking about on the street, trucks, motorcycles, and all that. And once the word gets out, it doesn't have to be policed 24/7. People will know, and they won't come downtown and do that. It's not as quiet as quiet's not the right word. It's always been vibrant, and we all love the vibrancy of downtown. It's why we live here. It's why the property values are so high. The downtown is such a great amenity. It's why restaurants are paying rents that are no one can comprehend. They're so high, but they're doing it. But I believe that we're at a tipping point. I really do. I think we're at a tipping point with this noise. It's not the motorcycle or the truck or the car. It's the amount of noise they're making, and we have to find an acceptable level and stop it and enforce it. And once we do, I think things will calm down. If we don't, I think what's going to happen, I'm already hearing rumblings from people in my circle of friends that they don't like it anymore. They want to move. They're not going to stay here with this kind of noise. They're already talking about leaving. There are nights, and particularly on Fridays and Saturdays, when it feels like a circus or a carnival atmosphere on Atlantic Avenue. And I think that that's chasing away some of the, what I'm going to call the paying customers, that people will go to the nicer restaurants and spend $150, $200 for dinner. Those people, they're losing interest. We're at a tipping point. We have to control this. We have to come up with some acceptable level of noise and settle on that, and then enforce it so that. But first, like the chief said, educate, get the word out to people that starting next month, we're going to enforce the noise on Atlantic Avenue, cars, trucks, motorcycles, etc., and then enforce it. Give out warnings to start, and with all due respect, I know that you said you had a $117 fine. That's not going to stop anybody. In Rhode Island and Newport, and this was 8 or 10 years ago, the fine was $250. I don't know what it is today, but it's enough to get people to pay attention to it. And then things will calm down. I really believe they'll calm down. I don't think we're going to need police on every corner enforcing it 24/7 for the next year. Once the word gets out, but if we don't do that, it's not going to change, except it's going to get louder and more disruptive. And I think that we're at a tipping point where it could go the other way.
Again, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for your concerns that you guys have brought forth to us this evening. As you know, you mentioned regarding the education component, the police department we have, and also working with neighborhood services and code. We'll be working with our communications director, Gina Carter, on educational components that you all will see, educating the community as a whole. And before, again, with enforcement, education is always what we start. But again, I want you all to know that the quality of life for all residents in Delray Beach will always be my priority. Safety and the quality of life will always be my priority. And listening to your concerns and the things that you brought forth tonight, my team and I will get together working with our other department heads, such as Jerry Pryor and her team. We'll make sure that we address your concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, sir. So, sir, we have a couple other individuals who have not yet spoken, but I'll be sure to get back to you, I promise. So the gentleman in the turtleneck, that's a great fall look, by the way, the weather, your attire, the ensembles.
Unfortunately, it's not fall.
Close enough.
My name is Matthew Farley. I've lived here for 8 years. Arlen spoke eloquently, and I'm not going to try to match him. I'm just going to add a thought to what he said. If you sit outside on East Atlantic Avenue, east of the bridge, and have dinner between 5 and 10, Monday through Thursday, that happens 10 times. Friday and Saturday, over a dozen times a night. Bang! Rum! You stop eating. You stop talking. As to the education requirement for the miscreants, I would suggest a $250 fine on the first offense, and on the second you impound the vehicle. The word will go forth from this time and place. Don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Duly noted. Executive Director, Downtown Development Authority, Laura Simon, and then you, sir, after Laura Simon. Okay, well, very well. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Well, we were a very small group of people listening to this discussion, but what do the mainstream people do to communicate, their feelings about this so that the ordinances are voted upon to represent the community?
In addition to the City Commission meetings, of which there have been several, and going back to 2022, as I outlined in the presentation, there's been a number of opportunities, including, and I think a couple of people in attendance today, participated in the consultant walk and the technical aspects to help get to the place of where we are able to offer recommendations. This is ancillary today. So above and beyond communication efforts and outreach engagements, we made today's town hall meeting an additional opportunity to offer ancillary feedback prior to the adoption of the actual ordinance so that we can take that under consideration. Not so much entirely concerned about the ordinance because City Commission, staff, we all feel that we are moving in the right trajectory in terms of striking that balance. We are also appreciative of tonight's opportunity because staff who will be involved in the enforcement, securing voluntary compliance and other strategies to get to the best place possible, doing what we can to advance strategies such that issues and challenges will no longer be as much the case as the word gets out, so to speak, is what we're working to accomplish. So this actually goes back nearly 4 years. I mentioned 2022 in the PowerPoint presentation earlier this evening while we kicked this session off, and it really takes us back to about March or April 2022, so literally about 4 years in the making. So a number of efforts have been executed to get to that place. Of course, the City Commission meetings are available for any other thoughts and feedback from any other resident who might be here, who may not be here this evening. But as I mentioned earlier also, this is a live stream engagement. So a number of people who are not able to join us this evening, they're able to listen and hear some of the feedback and commentary right at this time from the comfort of their home or wherever they might be. In addition, the opportunity to take a look at this presentation some other time, whenever convenient. So, ladies and gentlemen, ma'am, I think we've done quite well in terms of checking the boxes to engage in an effective outreach approach. Yes, sir.
Hi.
Thank you.
Larry Butel. Thank you for having this meeting. Just a thought. I know one of the most annoying, I think, noises in the residential areas is the lawn equipment. I also understand we can't put them out of business. I don't like the noise, but I hire somebody to come to my yard and make the noise. Maybe we need to get with our lawn companies and encourage them to use quieter equipment. I think the company that does come out with that and advertises as the quiet lawn company is probably going to get a lot of business. So maybe we need to, instead of waiting for somebody to come in and have an ordinance on the noise, we want to keep them in business, maybe we go the other route and somehow encourage them to use quieter equipment, and maybe they get a lot more business because of that. So just a thought.
Thank you, sir. A tremendous balance to strike for the reasons we discussed earlier when a couple of you all brought up the point and concerns in that regard, and potentially a next step in the process of getting us to where we need to be. Before we take Executive Director Laura Simon, I'd like to give Director of Neighborhood and Community Services Jerry Pryor an opportunity to offer some additional clarification regarding fines. Ms. Pryor, if you would.
So remember I said each case is different, depends on the variables of the case. It depends on what is going to happen moving forward. You're shut down, you get a fine, you go to hearing, you go to these things. So just keep in mind, it's not across the board, this is what's going to happen to everybody because every case is different. So in the proposed ordinance, it says that for music or noise that's over the decibels, that's defined in the ordinance, the first offense could be $250. Second offense could be $500. The fine can go up to $1,000 per case, depends on what the facts are on that case. Also, it could go up to $5,000 per case. Depends. Are you a repeat violator? Have we had to have you come into court many times? So it escalates. There is a provision in our code. It's called irreplaceable or irreparable, which means we can't change it. It's already happened. But we're going to bring you in because we gave you a warning. We gave you time to fix it. It wasn't fixed, and then you had a party right after we left, and we didn't see it, but we know you did it because we have evidence you did. It could be up to $15,000 through the magistrate process. So there are some mechanisms in the proposed ordinance right now. These provisions are already in the code enforcement process. And so I just wanted to help clarify because some folks, there is some teeth to it. It's just a process, right? You're not going to get a $15,000 fine right away unless it's irreparable and you go into court and the magistrate says, oh my gosh, this is too crazy. That magistrate's the one that decides what that fine is. Right? And so it's a process, as everything. We're learning just like you guys are, and then we're going to try to get, as City Manager Moore says, the best place possible to where not everybody's going to be happy, but we're going to do the best we can to ensure quality of life and ensure safety. So I just wanted to clarify some of the fines.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Excellent clarification, and it does offer some specifics relative to a few of the questions and concerns that were raised on the subject. Ms. Laura Simon.
Sure, thank you. First, thanks for having this town hall. And thank you, Commissioner Markert, for leading the effort to communicate and help educate this ordinance. I would have loved if everybody had a copy of the ordinance because I think that is important for everybody to know what's in the ordinance. So getting that, education, communication is essential for everybody to know what all those pieces are, because there's a lot of pieces in the ordinance itself. But first of all, I'm going to actually, as a downtown development authority, I'm going to take a little credit for our vibrancy and where we've gotten, and because we had Elwood's, which was Johnny Brown's before, which brought all the bikers down here, and we were dealing with bikers going up and down the street. What are we going to do? But to your point, working with them, helping them help manage the noise at that point was part of the process. So I think where we shine as a community is that communication effort and education effort, and and helping find those repeat offenders that maybe come here once in a while, but figure out how to figure that out. And I champion and give credit to our great police department who's been doing that for a long time. But I do know just for years we've been dealing with this noise on the street for our cafe society, and as it's grown, and figuring out how to manage that and educate people that while we do want them to be here, we want them to drive through, but we want them to stop and stay. So we don't want to chase them out, or we don't want them to be here to show off or, be misbehaving. We want them to come here because they want to be here and patronize our downtown and enjoy with everybody else. So how do we do that? Swinton to Federal Highway is the slowest area in our downtown core, which is also an entertainment district. So maybe it's an opportunity for us to better sign, better educate, better use our ambassadors to do walk-ups and talks to these people that are just sitting in traffic waiting to go because they're at the train or something like that. But I think there's some ways that we can all work together as, all we do in the community to help each other and help this better, build this process better before we have to go to the magistrate, right? But the other thing, too, is we do have, our downtown has changed and grown. We have a lot more restaurants here. We have a lot more open-air cafes. We have a lot more of that adding to this ambient noise level. And we want that, and we want to be able to enjoy that. So taking all that into account, and those that we have a lot more residential units coming into downtown, too, but helping to educate those that are coming here for the first time that this is a bustling place, and it doesn't shut down at 9 p.m. That's Boca. They close at 9. But we want it to be a very balanced environment. But our organization really wants to work with everybody to find how do we do that and have everybody succeed. And I do think either it's signage, education, handouts, how can we do that to do more than just put all the onus on code enforcement and our police department. But I think there needs to be more of just that ambassador, taking everybody to be champions and helping move this forward in a positive way.
Thank you, Ms. Simon. And, of course, the City of Delray Beach looks forward to any and all productive and effective collaboration with the Downtown Development Authority and all of the city partners to help us continue to strike the balance in doing what we can to be as well as we can. So thank you. Now, sir, we're back to you. So, Chief Stevenson, if you can please come forward and address any follow-up outcomes. Oh, I hope not. Yes, sir. I didn't forget about you.
No, I know. Thank you. I didn't. My first question, I didn't get the second part answered. There's a lot of confusion, at least from my perspective, about the ordinance itself and the 100-foot rule. I run a social network, and it represents, tens of thousands of people. And I would say that the majority of the people do have no idea about what it means that there's an ordinance about noise. And coming from restaurants, I'm not talking about, I think everyone universally believes that the motor vehicles is a problem. But we don't really understand, and I don't know if it's published anywhere, but I haven't read the ordinance. I don't understand what that 100-foot rule is. Does Johnny Brown's, 100 feet is 4 lanes of a street and parking. So when does that happen? And the question doesn't need to be answered here, but is there a way to find out exactly how it affects people because there's no one here that represents the venues that we're talking about that makes all the noise. And in all due respect to Mr. Rosen, I think if there's no music, there won't be 85 people making noise outside of a place. With no music, there's going to be nothing. And so is there a way that you guys, and I thank you all for participating and answering a lot of questions, is there a way that we can sort of broadcast what the meaning of the ordinance is so that people can have a full understanding of what is changed? I looked at the presentation, it's probably all there, but I have no idea what it is.
And then if I could just answer your question real quick, the 100-foot rule is when we don't have a sound meter. We don't have a device, so it's by our own ears. We can hear it from 100 feet. And I have to tell you, we did have a code case to where I could hear somebody's air conditioning across the street on the other side of the block, and I could hear it, and that's 100 foot. So we brought them into hearing, and the city was found in favor because we could hear it. We testified, code officers recorded it off of their phones, and they testified they can hear it from that far away because there's no device for us to measure that noise. So that's when that comes in, is that 100 foot. If we can hear it, it's one time. If I can hear it from 100 feet, then I give them a warning. Is the way the ordinance is today. Yeah, but the proposed ordinance, because we're going to have those devices, because we didn't have the devices before. We're going to go through the training, the police, and code enforcement. We're all going to have those devices. The devices is the perimeter of the property, right? But if I don't have that device, I have to be 100 feet away. And if I can hear it and coming from that specific place, then we can take them and give them a warning. Hope they comply. We go through the code enforcement process. Yep, correct.
Thank you. Mr. Stevenson, take care of the gentleman here. And if I may, sir, before you offer your thoughts and observations, I'd also like to acknowledge an additional representative of the city of Delray Beach, and that is Assistant City Manager Jeff Forrest. He was sitting over here a little while ago. Now he's over on the side of the house. Jeff Forrest, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, do what you can, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys digging into this because we live very close to these venues, so it's a big issue for us. I also have an engineering background, so I've gone through the ordinance, and just for the police and also for code enforcement, I think it's going to be challenging to actually do the enforcement because you're getting borderline into sound engineering. And that's a difficult field for you guys to be put into, that's my opinion. I think there'll be lots of challenges about did you measure the wind? How did you measure the wind? How did you measure ambient? Did you measure ambient right? So I've done some research, and I've talked to two companies. Oh, by the way, one does the Miami auto sound camera system. I got the names and contacts. I talked to them quickly. They may even offer a trial if you want to try it out. But getting back to the venue noise, there are automatic systems. They run continuously. What they'll do is they will measure the things you're being asked to do. They'll self-calibrate, so you don't have to do that. They'll measure the ambient, so you don't have to try and measure that. And by the way, if you looked at the ordinance, you guys actually have to make corrections. You got to do math and figure out all these corrections, right? And these devices are smart and intelligent. They're made for this purpose. And they're semi-portable. You could put them, maybe just move them around from whatever area you want, and you'll have real-time data that's justifiable for any ordinance. No one could say they didn't violate it. It'd be impossible. And the beauty is, police at night, code enforcement at night, you don't need it. They'll email and text you when there's a violation, and you can email the venue. And so what'll happen is they actually send a clip of that noise with the sound levels. So anyone, you put a person in the loop, right? You come in first shift, listen to the violation, and you can plainly tell. Maybe it was ambient, maybe it was a car coming by, even though they attempt to filter all that out, by the way. You can still listen to it and say, yes, that's a violation, and then send it off to enforcement. So I think resource-wise, you can't, it's going to be a lot of resources to enforce it. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult and very challenging to have these, there'll be like 10, 20 steps. You're going to have to document each step, right? That you did all these things. Otherwise, someone's going to say, no, that's not a violation. And so I've done all this research, and I have a lot of materials and some recommended changes based on that. So if anyone I can meet with, I'd be more than happy to go through what I found and how to do it. And I've talked to the vendors. They're more than happy to come talk to you, or Zoom meetings and everything. They're all ready to go. We just need someone maybe to work with.
Thank you, sir. And we really appreciate that simply because we talked about the use of sound devices to measure, et cetera. Talked a little bit about that via the PowerPoint presentation going back to November 18th. And as committed, this is an initial step for the city of Delray Beach. Once this is adopted, staff will have the ability and empowerment to take under consideration advances in technology and other efficient opportunities to get to the best place possible. So what you just discussed is consistent with that trajectory. If you can take the mic one more time, please. Thank you.
Just one other thing I just want to emphasize is that you'll get real-time data of all these points. That data you use to tweak the code, right? And no one can dispute it. This is what happened. This is what we measured. It's not, up to someone or someone's personal opinion. It's real-time data you can use to manage the city and benchmark against all your other cities.
Yes,
It's
sir.
very powerful.
Part of where we need to go. So we appreciate that. And we may have a representative from Police, Neighborhood, and Community Services accept your offer to connect with any information you may have available as we continue our trajectory to get to the best place possible. So I appreciate it. Any others, ladies and gentlemen? Let's see. So we have a second performer, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually didn't really get to finish the question I was asking, so I asked the police officers about the sound, and they've been trying since 2022. I think that's what you said. And the city's growing, and there is a lot more noise coming in. So I know it. I feel like it is almost too much to ask them to try to keep track of all of that and everything else that's going in town. So some technology, like the first gentleman or this gentleman spoke about, we have it over the traffic lights for speeding, and they get a ticket. And you go, oops, I shouldn't speed through that intersection anymore. I don't want a $250 ticket. If we had technology like that, first of all, the city would make money because it happens continually. And as soon as you get that ticket, those people who come every weekend or come during the week and hit that thing, they're not going to do it again. And the signage, I think, is very key. As Laura said, I think as you come into town, on either direction, welcome to Delray Beach. We have those nice signs, but then inform them we have a sound ordinance. This is what they did in Newport Beach. Sound and ordinance enforced. There will be such and such a fine. Technology in place. People are alerted. They're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to, I think that will help a lot. Between that and some technology, police officers doing the best they can, obviously. They're doing all they can do, but it's just not working. It's only getting worse, and I think everybody can agree to that. I'm not here complaining about the restaurants and the music, because I understand the town's vibrant, but I understand that can be an issue because it can get loud. But this stuff with the disruptive vehicles, it's unnerving. It really is unnerving. You just can't relax and have a meal. And I'll be out on a Saturday. My husband and I were out on a Saturday walking downtown, and this guy on a motorcycle, and a lot of them are older gentlemen. They're not young guys. These guys are in their 60s. I call them boys in their toys. They're boom, they make it really loud, and they scare you to death, and then they take off. Well, my husband just went like this because it scared me. It jolted me so much. I just jumped, and he went to the guy like this. Well, the guy started coming at him. He's like giving him the finger, and he wasn't, he just went like this, take it easy, because the sound. And the guy did it again and again. So this is the kind of stuff, we don't want these kind of characters thinking it's okay. That's not going to make our city better. In fact, if it continues that way, we will lose some of what we have here, the allure for this town. It has to change. It's going to bring in a part that we don't need, and it's already happening. And people don't have to do that. If they know they're not going to, they know they're going to be fine. They know that we're not tolerant of it. It just won't happen. It will definitely change.
Thank you. And again, consistent with some of the previous responses, advancements in technology, whatever opportunities can be made available to the city of Delray Beach to be effective, responsive, and attentive in this regard, all the better. And again, this is the initial start. One of the reasons for having this discussion is to take under consideration the feedback being offered across the board. And again, I think we're all on our way to becoming aligned with one another. So we look forward to it, and we'll take it from there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, what I like to do, we anticipated the town hall engagement to take approximately 90 minutes or so. Between 5 and 6:30, 5:30 or 7, we were back and forth in that regard. And as it turns out, that's about right. So thank you all very much for being with us this evening. And again, the thoughts, comments, feedback, observations are to be taken seriously. Before we adjourn, the next steps, we go before City Council for the second reading of the ordinance. And of course, we'll be able to incorporate administratively the thoughts, ideas, recommendations, and practices that were discussed by us here representing the city of Delray Beach, as well as striking a balance with respect to some of the thoughts and observations you all have shared. And administratively, we're empowered to proceed in that regard because once the ordinance is adopted, that is quite frankly the expectation. So again, a final step to offer community engagement and interaction regarding the subject matter prior to the finalization for adoption. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today. Have a great evening. Take care and stay well.